welcome to the show. This guy is taking UFC by storm. He's 6 straight wins, all finishes, what the UFC loves to see. And I can just see the smirk on his face. He's happy about those 6 finishes. UFC, I would say superstar. I mean, you're there. Mike Malott, welcome to the show. We know you're training like crazy and traveling from country to country. We appreciate your time. But welcome to the show. How's it feel?
Feels great, man. Just, I was in Sacramento like 7 years ago. We met in Sac probably that around that time 7 years ago, and I've been training with guys who had been in similar positions to what I'm doing now, and that was obviously the ultimate goal in moving down there was to have this kind of experience and go into the UFC well prepared and get finishes and get wins and do it the right way. And I kind of took the long road, but really happy to be where I am now.
It's very rare for people to fight in so many different organizations. You were in the World Series of Fighting, now PFL. You were in Bellator. You did a couple promotions out in Canada. That's really rare. Usually, someone goes in the Bellator and they're kind of pigeonholed in there. They're kind of stuck there. Our World Series of Fighting, it seems like there's a little bit of an easier road if you take that route to get to the UFC. But how was that? Were you ever scared to be like, okay, should I take this Bellator fight? Should I take this World Series of fight, knowing your ultimate goal was the UFC?
It was funny because like you said, all my fights were in different organizations. I think I had 2 fights with ECC, which was a local promotion on the east coast of Canada and the Maritimes. But I think the rest of the promotions I fought for it was like one and done type thing. Like a lot of guys, like you said, come up through, West Coast fighting, right? They come up through an organization and build themselves in a local promotion until they get kind of an opportunity with a bigger organization. And mine was basically just like, take the fights you can get, which is almost always going to mean you're getting offered to their guy. Like it was almost always you're fighting the tough guy, like you're getting brought in to lose. And so almost all my fights, it was like I'm being flown to this guy's hometown and his promotion where he's the champion or he's supposed to get the belt. And I'm just a guy on the card to help put it on. And, so I kind of got used to spoiling the show, which was fun. And that kind of set me up nicely for like my UFC debut. I've spent a lot of time living in the U.S., but I'm Canadian, so I walked out with the Canadian flag in Florida, and man, the Floridians loved America, dude. They were booing me as I walked out. When Mickey Gall got announced, they're cheering him. When I got announced, they were booing me. So I started like patting the flag and like I had this little chip on my shoulder, like, yeah, we've been here before. Give it a minute. Like we'll see if your tone changes in a sec. And then ended up knocking Mickey Gall out in the first round, and so that one worked out well, and I got to finally feel what it's like to be on the other side with this last one, where I'm not from the west coast of Canada, I'm from Eastern Canada, so I'd never been to Vancouver before, but just being a Canadian fighting in the UFC in Canada, like the crowd was behind me big time in this last one, so it was cool to feel the opposite side of the crowd advantage.
Yeah, you talk about being Canadian, and then I was looking at sort of your bio there, saying that you kind of got into MMA when you were 17. I assume also there was probably a fair amount of hockey in your childhood growing up, or were there any other sports that you ever kind of played that you were kind of interested in before fighting became a part of it?
So yeah, I grew up playing. I grew up playing like almost every sport I could get my hands on. I played mostly hockey. Played some, played football for a year, played rugby throughout high school, played some volleyball, golf, a lot of soccer throughout my life and stuff. But I got into fighting a little bit earlier than that. Started training martial arts at about 13 and then really picked it up at 17, but I pretty much trained through most of high school. I thought it was like hardcore training. It was like twice a week, like 2 MMA classes a week. And I was like, oh man, like I just thought, I didn't know, man. Like we had one small gym in town. Like I grew up in kind of a small town, and there was a gym I could walk to. And, my parents had 4 kids. So my brother was a high level hockey player. So they were driving him everywhere for hockey. One of my sisters was a competitive figure skater. So they were driving her around. I was like, can I start doing martial arts? They're like, if you can walk there, you can start doing it. I was like, all right, cool. I'll go to this one in town and I'll get myself there. And so it seemed hardcore at the time until I finished high school and went to like a high level Muay Thai and MMA gym and saw how those guys trained, and then moved out to the east coast of Canada for school, and and trained with like some high level pros at the time that were like very dedicated to MMA. And I'm like, oh, okay, so like 2-a-days is a thing, like not 2 a weeks, 2-a-days is a thing. Okay, like got to step the training up, and then that was like even I was introduced to even more at Alpha Male when I went down to California. It was like, oh, that's really how you train. Like this is how not only just are we putting hard work in, but these guys have gotten to the UFC again and again and again. So like there's a clear path and formula to getting to that level. So I took a lot from my time at Alpha Male and, really analyzed what I think it takes to be the best and what was really good about the training, what I think wasn't as good for me or what I could tweak, because every athlete's different. Like the same formula doesn't necessarily work for every single person. So in coming back to Canada, I've really tweaked my training schedule with my coaches, and we're constantly analyzing and checking the process. But I feel like I have like a really good system for me now, and I have a lot of eyes on me, and a lot of good training partners. So it's been like a pretty cool progression going from like small town kid with like, well, I want to get into MMA, and there's like a karate school in town, so might as well go there, to like one of the biggest teams in the world in California, to now being back with some of my early training partners and coaches in the sport, and we're all kind of like coming up together in Canada. Like it's a pretty cool journey so far.
Yeah, and Team Alpha Male, I remember I met you there probably like 6-7 years ago, and you kind of had your eyes kind of wide. You're like, wow, this is because you look around and how cool is it to have all these UFC champions, and I mean, there's a plethora. There's usually, when you walk in there, at least 10 to 15 active UFC guys. I always remembered you just soaking up the knowledge, very humble, still very humble, which I appreciate. I love it. And I feel like all the guys that we have interviewed, all the professional athletes, there's really one thing in common. They're all very humble and very eager to learn. How'd you get to Team Alpha Male, and who was the first one to kind of take you under its wing before you went on this, got on the UFC, and well, now you got 6 knockouts in a row, so everyone wants to coach you, right? Who was with you in the very beginning when you first got there, and how'd you get there?
So I first got to Team Alpha Male because there was a guy that I trained with in Ontario, the province I live in, Josh Hill. He goes down to Alpha Male every few months. He normally does his camps down there, at least part of his camps. He fights in Bellator, and he was on The Ultimate Fighter with Chris Holdsworth, so that was his in with the team. And I just got a hold of him and was like, hey, man, how do you go down there? Like, what's the process? And he sent me Dave Rowan's number, and I got in contact with Dave Rowan, and he was just like, all right, come down, like, see if you like it. And so I packed up like a hockey bag, a gym bag, and a little duffel bag, and I'm like, all right, this is all my stuff. I'm moving down there, and lived with Vinny Murdoch for a little bit. He was housing like out-of-town fighters, and and we're close buddies now, and I cornered him, went out with him multiple times when he fought in Bellator. Was supposed to corner him in the UFC when that whole health issue happened. Like I was with him when he found that out, fight week and all that crazy stuff. But when I was living with him, we go from being cool to being at each other's throats, and it was just hilarious. Just like I love the guy, he's my boy, but we're very different people, especially then at the time, so we were just like at each other's, like, it's like, we were going at it a little bit. And so it's funny to look back now and be like good buddies and laugh about that stuff now. But yeah, so I went down and trained at Alpha Male. I just kind of like showed up. Faber's like, so how long are you down? And I was like, oh, like I talked to Dave and told him I was planning on moving down, and he was like, oh, okay, cool. And I thought it would be more like I didn't know what to expect. I thought it would be more like they all knew I was coming down or something. I'm like, oh, I'm just like a guy. Oh, okay, like that's okay, it doesn't really matter. And the first guy to take me under his wing at Alpha Male was actually like the final guy that was like kind of the tipping point for me wanting to go down to Alpha Male at the time, was Martin Campman. So he had just become the head coach at Alpha Male. And I was like, okay, I'm 22 at the time, maybe 23. And I'm like, I suck at wrestling. I need to learn how to wrestle. I think I need to go, and I was fighting at 145 at the time. I was like, I suck at wrestling. I need to go find like the best wrestlers at 145 and train with those guys and get beat up and learn how to actually do this. And then have a coach that's kind of more similar to my style, like a striker and jiu-jitsu guy. and kind of like learn how to do that against the best wrestlers and integrate things well. And I was like, well, I was a huge Martin Kampman fan, still am. And I was like, well, who better to teach me how to do my style than Martin Kampman, and who better to like show me the holes that I have in my game than all the wrestlers at Team Alpha Male, you know? Like I felt like that was the perfect connection of you know, of my weaknesses and my strengths. So I went down there, and I thought it would take probably like, I'm like, okay, realistically, it's going to take me 6 months to get noticed. And, you know, I'm probably going to have to train for a while down there before I take a fight because I want to be like in with the team first. And it didn't take, you know, it didn't take too long before Martin Kampman kind of recognized my style and was like, oh man, like, you know, I'm sure he saw a little bit of himself in my style. Like we had a very similar style, especially at the time. And so he started holding mitts for me randomly after practice and giving me little pointers and teaching me stuff. And so, you know, we became buddies pretty quickly. And, you know, he'd go out of town for fight trips and stuff. And I'd like go walk his dog and let his dog out and stuff like that. Like we just kind of became buddies, right? You know, so he's a pretty cool guy. I miss that guy. He was an awesome guy to have around. But yeah, that was like the first guy to take me under his wing at Alpha Male.
And that's I mean, if you have a weakness in wrestling, there's no better, you know, place in the world to go to Team Alpha Male. Was that pretty tough? Because I feel over there, you got to pay your dues, right? They don't care who you are because you walk around that gym, and like I said, there's UFC guys. You just really are another guy at that point till you prove yourself. How was that? Like, you know, knowing you had a weakness in wrestling, and wrestling was some of the best guys in the world. I think Lance Palmer was there, Chad Mendez, Josh Emmett, believe it or not, is a really good wrestler. People don't know that. And how was that? Were you just kind of thrown into the fire and be like, damn, I have a lot to work on right when you got there?
I was thrown right into the fire, and I knew I had a lot of wrestling to work on. So I was like, look, you're probably going to get wrecked by these guys in wrestling. You know, at the time, especially, I was like primarily a kickboxer. I had some jiu-jitsu, but my kickboxing Muay Thai was pretty high level. And I was like, look, dudes are probably going to ragdoll you in the wrestling, but you're not losing like an exchange on the feet. Like you're going out there and like, this is what you do. This is who you are. Like you better go out there and beat everybody's ass on the feet. And we used to spar a lot harder back then. It was a lot more old school when I first got there, like big gloves, banging it out, like basically gym fights. And I was like, perfect. Go fight these guys, and on the feet, like try and kick the shit out of these guys. Like earn some respect on the feet. And I think it was like my second week. I think I did one round with like a guy who was more like kind of kickboxing. He used to be on the team. And then my second round, they're like, all right, yeah, go with this guy. And I'm like, okay, this guy probably looks like kind of a wrestler. He's kind of short and jacked. And there's like a couple of coaches behind him, but like he's not one of the UFC guys, so I probably don't need to worry about him too much. And I come out and I throw a jab at him, and I hit him with a jab, throw another jab, I hit him with a jab. I'm like, all right, cool. I go to throw another jab. He slips and goes like body, head, and cracks me with this overhand. And I was like, did this dude just hit me this hard? I'm like, what the fuck was that? Like, this is insane. So I'm like, all right, this guy's right hand. He's got a big right hand. I'm going to switch up southpaw, and I'm going to chew his body alive as hard as I can. So I'm just ripping open body kicks, body kick, body kick, body kick. He's ripping overhands at me. I'm like, I'm not taking a step back. So he'd step in and swing in the pocket at me. So I'd, you know, dig my toes in and swing back at him. And we just kind of beat the shit out of each other for 5 minutes. And all the coaches were like pumped at the end of the 5 minute round. They're like, dude, like, great job. That was sick. That was awesome. Go grab another good guy like that. Like, they were all pumped up. And I'm like, dude, how the hell am I supposed to be like an elite in the UFC? I can't even beat up this random like local dude. Like, and it was Josh Emmett right before he got in the UFC. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, fuck, man, how am I supposed to beat these guys if I can't even beat this random dude up? I'm like, oh, no, he's like one of the best guys in the world, just no one knows it yet. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about Josh, he has that right, that overhand right, and everyone knows it's coming, you know, and no one can really stop it other than, you know, that last fight. But it's, yeah, that's the thing over there. There's no one easy, or there's no one that you can't learn from, which is the cool part. And then you have fighters like Andre Fili, who I always tell everyone he's the most smartest, uneducated guy I've ever talked to in my entire life. The guy's brilliant, but you have all these great minds and athletes, and Lance Palmer, we had on the show. He's arguably one of the greatest collegiate wrestlers of all time. And it's no mistake that you've developed into what you develop now after these 7-8 years. You had a guy you fought, Thomas Diagni. Did I say that? Dion. God, the absolute worst with names. And he was our announcer, so he's got it down perfect. So I always got to double check. But that guy was a beast. That guy was huge. Did you guys fight at 55s or 45s?
No, we fought at 45s, and I remember being in the back before weigh-ins, and for some reason they're like, okay, we're leaving for the venue at 1, weigh-ins are at 5. So like you can't make weight at 1. So I made weight at like noon. But I'm like, why is there such a massive gap between like when we're getting it to like checking in for the shuttle and when we're weighing in? So we get to the SAP center in San Jose, the Shark Tank, and just like sit around for a couple hours, and then they do like the pre-fight medicals like while you're dehydrated. And I was like hurting bad. And while we were sitting in the back, I remember it being like 3:43 and like looking at the clock and lying back down and like holding back tears because I was in so much pain from the weight cut and thinking like, do I actually weigh in and fight, or like should I go to the hospital right now? Like this is really bad. Like I'm genuinely worried something bad's gonna happen. And then it felt like a while passed, and I looked at my phone again, and it was 3:45. It was like 2 minutes had passed, and I was like, dude, I don't know if I can make it an hour, like to weigh in. I don't know if I can do that. Like this is really, really bad, and I'm worried I'm like fucking my body up. And then even the next day, like we were waiting for the shuttle, and they called us, like sitting in the lobby. It was like less than 24 hours for some reason. Like we weighed in at 5 p.m. and then fought at like, I think I fought at like 3:30 because I was one of the first fights of the night. So I probably checked in at about 1. So it was less than 24 hours. And I remember sitting in a chair and then them calling like, all right, you, and Mike Malott. So I stand up and go to take a few steps forward, and I just stepped diagonally for like 3 steps because I was like spinning so hard. And I remember thinking, I'm like, all right, my brain's like just not rehydrated from this. Like, try not to get hit. You're fighting Tomas Dion. He's a world Sanshao kickboxing champion. Try your best not to get hit in this fight. Hopefully, nothing bad happens. And like, he hit me with one right hand in the fight that was like, the guy's got good power and everything, but I remember just like getting rocked badly with one shot. And now it's funny to think like fighting at 170, I'm moving up fighting guys that are 25 pounds heavier, and I'm getting, when I get cracked with punches, I'm like eating them way better at 170 than I did at 145. It's like, oh yeah, I'm not dehydrating the hell out of my brain. Like my brain's healthy. I don't do a massive weight cut at 70. So like I rehydrate back to my normal walk around weight typically, and I just get in there feeling great. Like the same weight I walk around and train at every day. It's like within a couple of pounds of that is what I get in the cage at for fight night. Like I feel like I'm myself. I don't feel like I'm a completely transformed, emaciated version of myself, and then just blown up with carbs, and like my muscles feel like they're full of lactic acid, and I'm like all pumped up. I just feel like myself. I feel light. I feel fast. I feel powerful. I feel strong. Like so much happier. I have those fights at 170 now. But the most frustrating thing about him, and I'm sure he'll back this up, is like sometimes he looked like a killer, and then sometimes he just like didn't show up on fight night. And you look at his record, and he's got on paper a losing MMA record. You're like, oh, how the hell does Malott have like a draw with this like dude with a losing record? He's so good. And when he fought me, he was sharp as hell. He was on point. And then I'd see him fight some other nights, and like, granted, he always fought killers, but I'd see him like, dude, that was like 10% of the guy I fought. Like, why the hell did you have to show up the night you fought me, man? Come on.
Yeah, he brought his A game against you, apparently. Yeah, I saw him cage side. Like I said, we announced a few fights. I think he fought for us a couple times. And he had a spinning back kick on someone that I remember just completely like leveled the person, just took them out of the fight completely. Was that something you were aware of? Like, okay, this guy's got some kicking power. It's something I'm going to have to be aware of. I'm going to have to defend against. And how do you go about that when you know someone's going to kick that hard?
So he fought a few times for you guys, I believe. He lost to Brandon Rossetti on one of your shows, right? And then he head kicked, I think side kicked Dominic Clark in the face on your show, right?
Yeah. I think he won the belt, I believe.
I think that was a belt-winning kick that he had done. Like I said, I just remember being like, wow, that was not a kick I was ready for.
No, and it was nasty. And then I can't remember the guy's name, but I think his nickname's Tarzan, and he like did a bunch of juice and went up a few weight classes. But he like switch head kicked, and I think that might have been for you guys too, where he like switch lead left side high kicked the guy right off the top of his head, like crow cop style, and just like limp.
Yeah, I don't think that was with us, but I remember seeing that. But yeah, well, and so now you're obviously well into your UFC career. When you go back home now, so are you going back and forth? Are you going back to Alpha Male, or what is the plan right now?
I'll go back down just to visit the boys and get some training with some friends. But like I'm living in Ontario, living in Canada full time. Like I'm heading to London, England with Feely and his crew. Not next week, but the week after for his fight in the UK. So I'm cornering him against Nathaniel Wood in a few weeks. He's fighting July 22nd. So Danny Castillo, me, and Coach Kieran Fitzgibbons from CSA, and then our mental coach. Feely and I have the same mental coach, Danny Patterson. So all of us are flying out there for that. I don't know when I'm going to go down next. I definitely want to get down soon just to like see the boys and do some training, and like I miss the crew. Like if I could just pick all my friends up and bring them to Canada, like that would be best case scenario. But as much as I loved living in California and Sacramento and training with the team, like the entire time I was living there, I was homesick. Like I missed home, I missed Canada, I missed my family, and it just like I've grown to realize like how important having my family around and being able to just like pop over and see my family on a random day is like how important that is to me, and honestly like how important it is to like my growth and like my process. Like even today I went to jiu-jitsu, and my brother's a professional hockey player. He's signed with the Winnipeg Jets organization in the NHL. He's played most of his games in the AHL, but he and one of his teammates just like are excited about MMA, and my brother, as of last summer, was getting into boxing with me at House of Champions with my striking coach. And then this summer, he's like, you know what, man, I want to do some jiu-jitsu too. So he's been coming to my jiu-jitsu gym. Like it's like an hour from where I just moved, but went out there and trained with him and got jiu-jitsu in this morning. So like I got to train and hang out with my brother after and before and just kind of hang out. Like that's just so important to me. And I had that like attachment to a lot of the guys on the team at Alpha Male. Like that was a really awesome like brotherhood, and it truly was a team. It wasn't just like a gym where people show up. It really was a team, and like because of that I have some friends that I'll have for the rest of my life through that team. But there's nothing quite like family, you know. Like it just I grew to a point where I'm like, look, my family's growing older and they're moving out and starting families of their own, and my parents are getting older, and it's like if I'm going home 2 times a year, like how many trips home with the family is that really? You know, like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it's like those trips are going to look a lot different once my parents start getting into their, you know, later years, and that's something that I'm not ignorant to, and I'm like, look, I don't want to have 2 trips home a year and not really be back in Canada until my parents are in their like 80s, and in a way they're still quite a while from there, but like I don't want to blink and have that time gone. It's like I need to have that time now. And even like this last weekend I was with my family all weekend and hanging out with them, and I just moved into a new house. I was actually living with them until last week, but I just moved into a new house with my fiance. So I'll still like, especially all summer long, be seeing my family like almost every week, almost every weekend. So it was kind of a missing piece of what I think I need to be successful.
No, that's awesome. That sounds great. And I did kind of look into your brother's hockey kind of stats and background there. And I did read up that they were saying, this guy can't shoot, he can't pass, but he sure can beat the hell out of anybody who tries to fight him. So I guess that was your coaching. I'm just kidding. I didn't look up his stats, but I was just like,
I was gonna say, man, 23 goals last season, 23 goals the season before. I don't know what articles you're reading, but
no, he's a shooter, but I'm sure he's got a good stand-up game now to go along with that shooting. So
the kid's a sniper with the puck and the hands, bud.
That'd be awesome if he gets in a fight and he puts him in like a rear naked choke and just taps him out. Or
Oh, he got in like 6 fights or so this year, and he was putting some hands on guys. He looked good in those fights, man. I love it. I'd be at the house, and watch a little bit and then go do something, come back, and kind of like walking through the kitchen. My dad's watching in the living room and just hear like, and Malott drops the gloves. And I'm like going around the corner like, I got to see this. He's just pummeling some dude like, and he's a big kid too, man. He's like just shy of 6'4", like he's over 200 pounds. He's a big, strong kid, man. So when he's putting hands on a guy, it's pretty mean.
Yeah, you can tell family is really important to you, and we have both been blessed with great families. And like you said, it's you can't put a price tag on that. You can't. There's nothing you can put on. You can't get that back with your family. And it seems like you are kind of at peace with that decision. But we got to ask the tough questions, right? Leaving Team Alpha Male. I know there's a lot of great schools out where you're out in Canada, but was it hard to leave all that, knowing there's such high level guys in this one little specific area? Did that ever, I guess, go into the decision of moving back to Canada? Like, was your training going to suffer at all?
100% that was something that went through my head. And one thing that I did was after Contender Series, I went back to Alpha Male for a little bit, and I moved back. After I went on Contender Series, I was at home for a month. And then I was going back to Alpha Male for about 6 weeks before Christmas. And in that month, I trained a lot at my main gym, Niagara Top Team. And there were a lot of bigger guys at Niagara. It's like a lot of lightweights, welterweights, and a couple really good middleweights. And while I was having unbelievable training at Alpha Male, there's no secret that like the average size guy or the median guy is going to be like
45.
Bantamweight, featherweight.
Yeah.
There are some really good lightweights, some really good welterweights, some really good middleweights. But like the bigger collection of guys are going to be like those smaller guys, right? And I was up here having like amazing training, and I'm like, shit, man, like the training up here is really good. Like I thought I was having like, oh, I'll go to some gym and train with some guys, and then I'll go back down and do my real training in California. And I'm like, fuck, man, like every time I've been coming home, it's been like there's more and more guys. People are starting to move here to train from other parts of Canada. The teams in this area are working together a lot more than they used to. Like that was one of the reasons I moved to Alpha Male, was like there was like 50 local fighters and like 55 gyms where it's like nobody's training together. And if they are, it's like weird only on their schedules. And it was like, it also felt like small town mentality where it was like, well, our team doesn't want to, our guys don't want to train with this team because they might fight on like a local show. And it's like, dude, screw your local show. Like, are we trying to be the best guy in town? Or are we trying to be the best guys in the world? Like, let's work together, pool our resources, and beat these guys from Dagestan and Brazil and wherever, like all these beasts from around the world, from the US, like beat all the other good guys. Like, I don't want to be the best guy in town. I want to be the best guy in the world. So Alpha Males was one of the reasons I went there. Was like a bunch of guys under one roof. It's simple. And the more I kept coming home over the last few years, the more teams started like working together and just like having big team practices, and then guys would go off and work with their own coaches. So I was flying back down to California, and I'm like, man, I was having elite level training in Canada. Went back to California for like 5-6 weeks, went home for Christmas, and I decided to stay home for like a couple months before my debut. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to train for a couple months at home, and then I'm going to go back to Alpha Male, and I'm just going to litmus test this. Where am I on the measuring stick? Like the guys who were competitive with me, are they as competitive? Are they above or below? Like, are they getting better than me? Am I getting better faster than them? Same with the guys that are better than me. Am I closing the gap, or is the gap getting bigger? Same with the guys like I was beating up. Is the gap getting bigger? Is the gap getting smaller? And I went down, and I felt like I was answering questions, like I was reacting to problems better than I had been. I felt like the test said that the training I'm getting in Canada is extremely high level, like very elite. And so I'm like, all right, well then I'm going back to Canada. I'm doing my camp in Canada. Like I have a lot of big guys to work with. I have a ton of eyes on me constantly. Like that's one thing that sometimes can be difficult with like big rooms, is like when you're in a practice of 60 guys and 1 or 2 guys are running practice, how much attention are you getting, and how much is like a practice tailored to you? Which sometimes just like, dude, shut up and do the work. But sometimes I'm like, I want like specific eyes on me at times. And I feel like the work that I'm getting here is like very specific to me, in that like I do a lot of one-on-one with my coaches, like even today. So I was at jiu-jitsu practice from, it's like kind of 3 practices today. Granted, the first hour we're kind of more shooting the shit today, but normally it's normally a full private session with my jiu-jitsu coach, then a regular like jiu-jitsu class practice, and then the hour after that. So it's an hour. And the final hour is we just do ADCC rounds. So we just slap, bump, go, 9-minute goes of like wrestling and grappling. So just like dog rounds, right? So exhausting day. You can probably see it on my face. I'm all like gaunt and sucked out, right? But
No, we
a
don't see
lot.
that. We're
No, I feel like very like gaunt right now.
we had our
But
launch party yesterday. So we
A little worse for wear.
from eating pizza and taking shots, a little different than your day of exhaustion. But
but
yeah, we're feeling it. We're feeling it today.
I'm in good
Yeah, I was gonna
company
say you look
nonetheless.
like chiseled granite over there. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I thought freaking Adonis was over here talking to us, and so yeah, whatever, bro.
Almost every day I have one-on-ones with my coaches. Like it's a lot of that. And then I have like my big team practices. Like today we had like battle rounds with ADCC guys, like guys that are looking to either compete in MMA or the like jiu-jitsu pros in the area that are looking to compete in ADCC, or like the up and coming amateurs who are looking to compete. Same with, Mondays. We have like like Monday is like a gut check day. It's like, what are you made of? We're doing hard wrestling. There are some guys that are getting ready for, nationals or trying to chase the Olympics. There are a lot of MMA fighters, and it's like all in one room. We're beating each other up. But like I have a few of those big dog fight practices per week, and I normally film my rounds, and either my coaches are watching me during it, or I send my coaches my rounds back, and we watch them back and analyze them. And then everything other than those hard gut check practices are one-on-ones or semi-private lessons with coaches where it's like, Mike, this is something you've been struggling with. We need to work on this. It's not just like, now show up to jiu-jitsu practice, and then today in jiu-jitsu we're going over like, reverse de la Hiva stuff you're never going to do in a jiu-jitsu, in a fight, or like something that's too generic that fits everyone. Almost everything that I do is either one-on-one or semi-private lessons with coaches and a couple training partners, and then gut check hard practices. So it's like, I think of it like university, right? You have your lectures, you have your labs, and you have your studying. So it's like lectures. It's just like that's my studying with my coaches, or like a one-on-one with a coach where I'm like, okay, this is what I need to learn. We're getting better at something. We're testing something. We're trying things out. Now let's go and go to the lab and see if it works. I'm like, oh no, that didn't work. I got the hell beaten out of me today. We need to refine that. And then I do my own studying on my own, where like I'm watching a lot of film, and I do my own mental training and with my mental coach. And I'm watching fights and studying, or looking at instructionals, or just watching my own rounds back and being like, okay, that's something I need to improve on. Or, about once a month I go back and watch all my fights, and I'm like, okay, what's a mistake I didn't realize I was making 6 months ago because I've gotten better? What's like something I can see somebody else using against me? Like what are the things that I can seal up moving forward?
Yeah, I'm glad that you likened it to being a college student, because I was going to ask you. I read that your first fight basically took place while you were a college student. Did I? I might have read this wrong. I'm really having trouble with this name. I'm going to give it a try. Was it Dalhousie College or
Close. Dalhousie.
Dalhousie? Okay, so I thought it might be like a French word. I thought it might like be Delusia or something like that. So I was a little worried that I might just totally butcher it. But what was that like? You're going to your first fight. You're in the ring there, and I see that you win very quickly with an armbar. It's like 30 seconds into the first round. I'm sure there's a lot of adrenaline pump and all that stuff, but what was that like? Was it a big crowd? Was it a fairly small crowd? What was that like, that first fight?
It was cool. It was a small crowd. Actually, my first 3 fights were while I was in college. So I was training full time while I was in school. I was in school full time, but I really was doing part time school and full time fighting. I wasn't a great student. Um, I was just too one track mind, man. I knew what I wanted to do. I was like, I'm fighting in the UFC. This is what's happening. I'm putting my eggs in that basket. But yeah, the first fight was like actually at our gym. So um, our gym was like a renovated old movie theater, or or like play theater. So there was like a stage. So it was like we'd hold fights there, and there was like a ring and there was like a ring at the end of the gym. Like it was all like cascading down, which where there would have been like chairs all the way down, right? And they made like kind of like three main platforms, and then like a main platform at the bottom, which is where they had the ring. And there was like a track up top, basically, so people would like lean over the track and watch down. So it was really cool. It was like a small venue, so there were probably like 300 people there, but it was like packed, and it felt like a really cool environment. While there weren't a lot of people in there, it felt like really intense. So that was pretty cool. And then had some like random fights in hockey arenas, and like I forget where the other one was. It was at some like expo center or something like that. In front of probably the same amount of people, 300, but in like a much bigger venue, so it feels like empty and weird and loud and echoey. You know. But yeah, those were kind of cool. It's weird, like having to go get in a fist fight and then go to like economics on Monday. So just go into class, and someone's like, "Didn't you fight on the weekend?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Your face isn't all messed up." I'm like, "No, I won in the first round." They're like, "First round? No way! That's so sick. I got to come to the next one." And then no one ever did.
And then you're back in your hometown, right? That you grew up in, or the same kind of area.
Same kind of area. I live about an hour from there now. I'm like 20 minutes from Niagara Falls right now.
When you're going back in town, are you getting recognized now? Has that point happened yet? Where you're walking around, you're like, "Hey, I know you from somewhere," or has that happened yet?
Every once in a while, it's more like at gyms and stuff. Like when I go back to a gym, or if I'm going to a new gym or something that's like more appropriate for people to know, like this world. But every once in a while, I was at the gas station the other day, like heading up north for the weekend, just heading up to like Lake Country. And some guy just goes, I was walking by some guy pumping his gas, and he goes, "Hey man, good fight last week. You won me some money." I'm like, "Oh, thanks, bro. That's awesome."
Be 10% of that.
Yeah, right, yeah. Like, how we,
And
you
then
don't cover my gas here, bud?
and then I know, obviously, coming up in the sport, there's not much money, right? You got to pay your dues, especially in the regional circuit. I mean, you did,
Oh, coming up, yeah.
yeah, you did World Series, Bellator. They paid okay, but now you got two fight bonuses.
2 performance of the nights in a row, if I'm not mistaken.
So that's 100 G's right there. That's got to feel pretty good, right? Like to just kind of breathe a little bit, because a lot of people don't know, if anyone's listening, fighting up till you get to the UFC, there's not a lot of money in there. You're scraping, you're living kind of like the college life. And what was your first purchase? What was your first thing when you're like, okay, I got some money in the bank, I can breathe a little bit, I'm gonna go buy something for myself? What was that?
I mean, other than like the stuff for the house, which is obviously a massive purchase, but as far as the like, I've got some money, I'm going to go buy something now, like, I'm not that guy at all. I'm wearing free clothes right now. I wear UFC clothes. I'm not a guy that likes fancy cars. I don't really care about that. I don't wear any jewelry. I don't have tattoos. Like, I don't honestly spend money on anything. I the reason I want money isn't so that I can change my life. The reason I want money is so I can keep my life the exact same. Like, I love my life. Like, I love that I get to wake up every morning and train with like my best friends and do like my favorite thing in the world, training martial arts with like my favorite people, like my coaches and my training partners are like my favorite people in the world. And I get to wake up and have coffee and breakfast with my fiance every day, and then come home and have lunch with her, and then I get to, go see my parents on the weekends and her parents on the weekends. Like, she's got an awesome I'm not like one of those guys with like the in-laws, like her family's super supportive of me and they're awesome. And like, so I like genuinely love going to spend time with them. So it's like on the weekends, if I'm not training, like, or after training, I go see my family or her family, or we go do like something together. And during the day, I train and hang out with her and come home and listen to podcasts and watch like Black Mirror. And just like, it's really nice, like living a life and being like, if I had $50 million, my life would change in almost no way. Like, if it was $1 billion and I had enough to afford a private jet and I could like jet down to Sacramento for, a couple days and go see the boys and then fly back on my, like, that's what would change a little bit.
But it sounds like, yeah, it sounds like you're living the dream. Like from a couple older guys, we always talk about what everyone searches for is being financially stable with doing what they love. And I hope that's really, really rare. And people seek that out their whole life. And what you just described is super, super rare. And I'm glad you realized that. But there's nothing better, I think, more fulfilling than doing something you love and getting paid for it and being financially stable with doing what you love, what you would do for free.
Yeah, I like not only would I do this for free, but like not that long ago, I was paying to do this. Like I was paying $150 in registration fees to get in a bear shin Muay Thai fight. Like it was and driving what was going to be by myself until one of my coaches, I'm hitting the road already on the road, and one of my coaches is like, "So who's going with you?" I'm like, "Oh, none of the other guys could make it." Like I brought a water bottle and like I'm going to like get in a bear shin Muay Thai fight with elbows with no one with me. And my coach is like, fuck, my kid's birthday, but like, come pick me up. All right, I'll come with you. I'm like, oh, okay, sick. So I go pick him up and he comes with me. Like that's, and it was like, what else? That's so sick. Like, of course I was nervous and stuff, but like, dude, I'm going to go fight somebody today. Like, this is sick. And like, all I have to do is pay $150. Let's do it. Like, and now it's like, that's what I get to do to make money and to get to like live in this awesome house with like, my fiance and like, dude, yeah, I love my life, man. Like throw in a couple like escape rooms and going to the drive-in every once in a while and I'm set, man. Like,
Are you bringing any of the coaches with you, like for your fights, or how's that going to work? Like, are you going to bring any of the Team Alpha male guys with you, like on your next fight, or is it going to be all guys up in Canada?
so I had Danny Castillo for my first two fights, and then this last one he wasn't able to make it. Something personal came up, so he couldn't make it. So I had my jiu-jitsu coach Andre Grambois, who I work with very often. I had him corner me instead, and I really liked both dynamics. Like fight week in Jacksonville, which is my debut, and then Vegas, which was my second fight. They were just like really fun weeks. Same with this last one. Like Danny Kiss, like I was nervous for Jacksonville, especially because I'm like, shit, none of my coaches have really worked together. Like some of them are from the same area, but they don't really work together at all. I'm like, this could be cool or this could be an absolute shit show. Like I have two wrestling coaches in my corner that don't know each other. I have Danny Castillo and I have Chris Prickett. Are they going to be like excited and friends and sharing knowledge and being like, oh, that's cool, I didn't know that? Or are they about to have a pissing contest in my corner about who the better wrestling coach is? Like, is what's about with everyone. I'm like, shit, are they going to be like battling over who's the lead cornerman? What's going to happen? I'm like, all these guys seem cool and like, I hope that isn't what happened, but I've seen two coaches from different camps corner the same guy and have an absolute pissing contest all week long to where I'm like, I'm the third guy in the corner. I'm like, I'm so embarrassed for both of you. How are you not recognizing how inappropriate this is? Like, this is this guy's biggest fight of his life, and you guys are just trying to like measure each other the whole time. I'm like, that's crazy. So I was worried that was going to happen, and it couldn't have been further from the truth. Like, all we did all three fight weeks is just like hang out, and it was the best, man. Just told stories and like my striking coach and Danny Castillo like stand up having whiskey together like, oh yeah, I like a good whiskey or good scotch or whatever. And then my kickboxing coach is like, I got a bottle of Lagavulin in the room. He's like, oh, perfect. Like, let's hang out and have some cigars. Like, guys just like hit it off to where it's like the coaches like message each other now. Like, even like Cruella, my kickboxing coach, and Danny Castillo shoot each other messages like, dude, I can't wait for fight week. That was so much fun last time. We're just gonna hang out and have a good time. Like, it's pretty cool, like seeing all those guys like mesh so well, and it makes fight week so enjoyable for me. Like, fight week as the fighter isn't normally enjoyable. It's normally miserable for most guys. And I can genuinely say, with no exaggeration, that my three fight weeks in the UFC have been by far my favorite traveling fight weeks, whether I'm cornering, which I've cornered like hundreds, in the UFC, I've cornered like 20 something guys or times, but like outside of the UFC, I've cornered hundreds of times. Like the three fight weeks I've had as the fighter have been by far my favorite weeks. They're so much fun.
Sounds amazing. And, we haven't talked to Danny Castillo. I could see how, what was his nickname? The Party or something? Last Call, right? I was going to say, you bring alcohol to the table. He's usually going to be a good friend of yours. But I could also see, too, because he's a really serious guy when it comes to stuff that, this could be an issue where, like, you're stepping on my toes here. I'm just picturing two guys in a corner, one going, take him down, the other one going, no, stand him up, like how much would that suck, like hit him harder, no, hit him softer, like, no, you're not even trying, you're just trying to be against me. But man, that must be terrible. And like you said, you've been in that kind of corner before. I got to wonder for the fighter, that's got to be just the worst thing in the world. You're just getting, you're just getting no help at all because, certain, things that you're being told to do, you're being told not to do it right after. So, I mean, that's got to be just.
Dude, while cornering people, I have put a hand on the other cornerman's shoulder and said, stop. And then kept like talking. I'm like, you're wrong. Stop talking. And then start talking. I'm and then have like a calm down and have like a conversation about it after. But I'm like, look, man, no, that's not your area of expertise or this, like, stop, man. And like you said, Danny Castillo's very serious and you wonder, okay, how is he going to mesh with my other coach and that grueling? Bro, he's a European and Romanian Muay Thai champion. He grew up in communist Romania. Like, that man is hard as nails. Like, that man at 20 years old was way more of a man than I am at 31. Like, the things he's seen in his life, he is not about to be a guy who's going to get pushed around in the corner. Like, so it's like, oh shit, how is this about to go down? Like, I hope I'm not making a huge mistake. And like, they are boys. Like, it was Cruellin's birthday yesterday, 4th of July, and he like tagged Danny Castillo in a post. He was in Vegas at Palace Station, and he was at like the Oyster Bar. And they throughout fight week like kept going to the Oyster Bar all week, and he's like, Danny Castillo, I'm back. Like, where you at, man? Like, just like it's like, no need for them to like, genuinely they're friends now, like they're buddies. And it was like through my fights that happened. So it like feels really special to know that you like got to introduce people that really like each other, not just because you fight, but like because they actually get along.
And so what are you going to do moving forward? Sounds like you got a bunch of options, right? And that's the hardest thing is I've been in the MMA game for so long. That's the toughest thing for fighters is to move on or stay, or because they turn out to be family. You go through the ups and downs together. So what does that look like? Have you even made that decision? I don't want to put you under the gun here, but what does it look like moving forward?
That's the thing, man. There's 3 slots and 10 guys. So that's conversations we'll have moving forward with the coaches and stuff. Pretty sure I know what I'm going to do, but obviously don't want the first time those conversations to happen to be on a podcast and them hear it, for this. So we'll have those conversations moving forward. But honestly, there's no wrong answers, man. I'm blessed. I've got amazing people around me. I've got great resources. I've got people who care about me genuinely, and not just because I'm a fighter. Like, these are people I'll have relationships with for the rest of my life and genuinely care about. And I know they genuinely care about me. Like, just the emotion, fight week, and the build up is there's so much tension and just like the amount of celebration, not through like partying, but just the like genuine happiness for me and for each other, and like the just like good vibes, man. It feels so good. So to know that you have that in your life, it's like there's no wrong answers, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, I was looking at your fight record. I noticed there was a couple years off between about 2017 and 2020. But during that time, you were doing a lot of coaching, right? Is that what I was reading up on?
Yeah.
What did you find that experience gave you that you maybe wouldn't have gotten if you were just concentrating on fighting that whole time instead of coaching?
That experience gave me exactly that experience. Like, I got to make 20 some odd UFC walks before making my debut. Like, that's like an invaluable resource to have, like, that I don't think anyone else in the UFC has ever had that. I don't know if anyone's ever had 20 walks to the UFC cage from the fight week, get on the shuttle, check in, get on the shuttle, drive to the venue, go through the back, go sit in your locker room, warm up, put on the gear, put on this exact shirt, go walk out, sit in the tunnel and hear the like quiet echo of the loud room, and then hear the bum, bum, bum. Mike Malott is fighting out of the, and like hear that in the back, and it like echoes weird, and hear people like, you can hear over there all that energy and how loud it is, but it's like really quiet and like echoey and like cement walls beside you. Like, knowing that 20 some odd times before doing it the first time is like, no one has that resource unless you've fought 20 times. Like, nobody really has that. And the guys that do have that level of coaching typically are full-time coaches now. So like, they're never going to need to use it as far as like fighting goes. So like, I feel like I have a huge leg up on a lot of guys as far as like understanding what a fight is like and what fight week's like and what emotions fighters might have. And like I've seen great camps where everything went perfectly. I've seen camps where nothing went well, and like I saw the same thing with fight weeks and with fights, and just like, holy shit, that just was not the right call for this fight. Or like, man, everyone was so out of sync in the corner and the fighter, and like, seeing what guys truly need, and myself screwing up in the corner as a coach and looking back and being like, that's not how I should have handled this fighter as a coach. I should have dealt with it in a different way, and realizing that every fighter is different, including myself, and realizing that like what people truly need and what I specifically need moving forward. Like I'm very transparent with my coaches about what I need and what I think.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of felt that maybe one of the reasons you left is you felt the heat was coming, that you felt like the really scary, like hard-hitting questions were coming, and you were right. What the hell is up with this poutine stuff? Why is it trying to invade my country? I thought that was just a pure Canadian thing. What is it doing? Why?
Dude, I'd love, honestly, nothing more than to be able to back that up and love something Canadian. But man, that's just like a nasty. I don't know, fries and gravy and cheese. Yeah, it's not for me, man.
I mean, I love fries.
You love it, do your thing, but God, that's some heavy shit.
I love fries and I love gravy, but I don't know, man. I was just sort of like, it's not for me. And also, what the hell is a cheese curd? Like, why is it? What makes it a curd? It sounds like turd, and that gives me a bad feeling already.
The weirdest to me when people have it as a meal. Like I'm like, is it a meal or a snack or just what is it? I don't get it.
Yeah, it should. I don't think that should be a meal. That's definitely more of a side, but like also a heart attack just waiting to happen. But yeah, if we're gonna do a Mount Rushmore of Canadian food, what are we doing? We going maple syrup, poutine. What else are we throwing on there?
And I think you got to throw some Nanaimo bars on there.
Oh, I just saw about those the other day. They look really good. It's like a chocolate cream thing, right?
Mm. Yeah, I think it's from Nanaimo, BC, or they're from Nanaimo, BC. And then I don't know, Jess. What else? What else we throwing on there?
Told you these questions were so hard hitting. He had to go for a lifeline, folks.
Honestly, I feel like if you're really going Canadian, you just got to throw like anything Tim Hortons.
Tim Hortons, anything for the fourth head on the Mount Rushmore.
We were also talking about how it would be really cool if we had your brother do an armbar or a leg lock. I know we talked about it earlier, but can we make that happen? Can you just go specifically train him, be like, next time you get in a fight, a double leg takedown straight into an armbar? Like, can he make that out? And then the guy's got to tap. How awesome would that be? That'd be
just grab the jersey and just hit that beautiful judo throw with like the jacket on.
That needs to happen. I know you got it. Yeah,
so you might,
go ahead.
Might kill somebody on the ice, but otherwise,
yeah. It's worth it for history.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely never been done before. And so, what I know you got practice here in a little bit. What does it look like for your next fight? Obviously, you want someone in top 10, top 5. Is there anyone you want to call out? Is there anyone specific or?
I mean, I don't think they're going to give me someone definitely not top 5. I don't see them giving me anyone top 10, maybe top 15. But I honestly think they'll probably wait one more. What I see in talking to management, what I think the next logical step for them is basically someone between like 20 and 30, somewhere in that range, and then start looking to get a ranked opponent after that. The opponent's not the biggest concern for me. I want to fight in Canada. Like I got spoiled in the last one, so like if they're planning on coming back to Canada 2 or 3 times a year, I would love to just be the resident main card slot. Like just. You're coming to Canada, I'm on the card. Just call me when you're coming back to Canada. Like I loved fighting in Vegas, and fighting in Florida was sick, but I got absolutely spoiled in Vancouver. They're treating me like the best. Like the fans were amazing. The fight week was incredible. There was so much like hype, and they promoted me so well. Like I don't want to go from that. Like I feel like anything else I'm too spoiled by that to going back to like a fight night at the Apex would just feel like a step backwards. So I know Dana was saying they're thinking about Toronto next. So that's an hour from where I live. I grew up in the area. If you're coming to Toronto, I have to be on the main card.
Have you, as George St. Pierre, reached out to you? Have you ever been in contact with him at all? Obviously, he is one of the biggest Canadian UFC figures of all time. Do you have any talks or any conversations with him yet?
Not yet, but I'm still holding out strong for that. Like hoping to get some training with him someday.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you coming on. I know you got a busy schedule. We're excited. Seems like you got everything in place. And we're excited to watch your career unfold. And when you get that championship fight, we're going to release it here. How's that sound? Yeah, all right. Cool. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you. Have a good day, and we'll be in touch.
Nothing but the best.
Thanks for watching Two Bees in a Pod. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment, share, and thank you for all the love and support.